everyone, welcome back to our channel. It's me, Teacher George, and for today's lesson, we will discuss about media and information sources. Since natapos na natin yung mga concepts na dapat nating malaman from what media is, down to literacy, ngayon, ang pag-aaralan natin ay ang iba't ibang source ng media and information. Are you ready to learn? Okay, let's start. So this is our lesson for today. Media and information. So malalaman natin ano-ano yung mga sources under media and information. Okay? Okay, so let's start. To begin with, I have this question for you. How do you usually acquire information about a certain topic? Paano ba kayo nakakakuha ng mga impormasyon tungkol sa isang bagay? For example, suspension of classes, no? Saan nyo ba yan nakukuha? Nakukuha nyo ba yan sa cellphone, television? Anong source ng media ang ginagamit ninyo or nagagamit ninyo? For example, the birth of group chats, no? So ngayon, wala na tayong excuse para hindi malaman na may pasok or wala, because lahat ng news na nalalaman natin ay galing sa media, right? May television tayo, may radio tayo, and the birth of group chat. So doon na natin nalalaman kung may pasok pa tayo o wala. May mga impormasyon din tayong nakukuha doon sa web, no? It's very uso ngayon, the technology that has something to do with internet. So meron tayong mga web pages doon. For example, we have this Google, internet, Chrome. We have famous talaga na kinukunan ng estudyante ng isang information. This is the Wikipedia. So I have this question. Why does it matter to know if Wikipedia's content is credible? Bakit natin kailangang malaman if ang laman ng Wikipedia na na-research natin ay totoo or valid? Okay, second question. So aside from Wikipedia, aside daw sa Wikipedia, what other sources of information do you turn to whenever you want to know about something? So aside from Wikipedia, so nag-research ka na sa Wikipedia, pero aside from Wikipedia, ano-ano pa ba ang sources na kinukunan ninyo na information? Third, what is the implication and the effect if the given information is unreliable? Example, paano kung ang nakuha mong information ay baliktad, hindi totoo? For example, imbes na walang pasok, may pasok pala. So, anong implication nito sa inyo? Okay, may mga implications na maganda at may mga implications na hindi. It depends on the information. Sometimes, if ang information ay totoo, then maganda ang naidudulot sa atin kasi we are well informed. But then again, may mga cases na yung information na nakakarating sa atin ay hindi totoo. So, hindi siya valid. Right? So, imbis pumasok ka sa paaralan, hindi ka na lang pumasok kasi yung nakuha mong information ay hindi totoo, gawa-gawa lang pala. Another. This one. So, since we're talking about sources, tingnan natin dito sa activity. Idodraw natin sa isip natin kung ano-ano ang sources na present sa media and information. So, tingnan natin if may madraw kayong tatlong sources dito. Okay. This is just an example of an activity showing yung tatlong sources ng media and information. So, nandito, form a group with 3 members. So, ibig sabihin, yung class daw ay i-divide sa maraming grupo. And each group will have 3 members. So, ibig sabihin, May person number 1, person number 2, at person number 3 sa iisang grupo. Second, one member of the group will pick a piece of paper that contains an action which he or she silently perform in front of the second member. So, ito yung si first member. Di ba may tatlo tayong member? So, si first member, siya yung kukuha ng papel. She will be the one to pick a piece of paper that contains an action where he or she silently perform in front of the second member. So, ibig sabihin, kasali na sa eksena si second member. Yung first member natin, bubunot siya ng action. And then, haharap siya kay second member at i-act niya doon kay second member ang napili niyang verb or action word. Okay, anong mangyayari? Third, second member of the group will be asked to observe and write specific detail about the action being performed by the first member. So, yung role na second member, siya yung mag-o-observe sa first member. And he or she will write specific detail about the action being performed. For example, yung napili ni member 1, first member, yung napili ng first member ay kumakanta. So, ngayon hawak-hawak niya ang mic and then gumagalaw yung ulo niya, gumagalaw ang bibig niya. In a sheet of paper, yung actions na ginagawa ni first member. This includes his observations as well as his or her understanding of the action being performed. Ano ang mangyayari kay third member? Okay. After the second member has finished documenting the action being performed by the first member, so pagkatapos isulat ni second member kung ano ang ginagawa ng first member, the third member will give the the second member will give the document to the third member. Ipapasa ni second member yung nasulat niya or natali niya sa sheet of paper kay third member. Then, the third member will write a summary based on the document provided by the second member. So, ibig sabihin, lahat ng sinulat na description ni second member, isa-summarize ni third member. So, si third member, yung magsasabi kung ano ba talagang action ang ginagawa ni first member. So, that's basically the game. Each group will be doing this in front of the class while other groups are observing. Okay. And then after the game, the other groups will be asked to answer these following questions. Which of the three individuals would be considered most reliable in terms for the assigned action for the group and why? So, ibig sabihin, tatanungin ngayon ni teacher, no? Natapos na yung activity natin. Tatanungin ngayon ni teacher kung doon kay member 1, member number 2, at member number 3, sino yung pinaka-reliable, most reliable in terms sa information na nakukuha? Sa member number 1 ba? Or sa first member ba na nag-act ng nabunot niyang information? Sa second member ba na nagtali ng actions na ginawa ni first member? Or sa third member na nag-summarize ng binigay ni second member? Sino kaya? Okay. Ngayon, titingnan natin kung ano-ano ang type of sources na meron tayo when it comes to information. So, may tatlo lang tayo dito. We have the primary source, secondary source, and tertiary source. So, based doon sa activity, kung babalikan natin yun, sino si primary source, sino si secondary source, at sino si tertiary source. So kung naintindihan yung mabuti ang activity, malalaman na ninyo kung sino ang ating primary source, secondary source, and tertiary source. Right? Okay. Basically, yung primary source natin ay si member number 1. Siya si first member of the group. Remember yung nag-pick siya ng information at enact niya. Bakit? Because based on the meaning, so basahin natin yung meaning. Primary source or sources. So these sources are records of events or evidence as they are first described or actually happened. So ibig sabihin, si primary source pala ay yung first hand experience. Ibig sabihin, ito yung nauunang action na nagagawa galing sa information. Or ito yung pinakaunang information na nangyayari sa cycle. Right? Without any interpretation or commentary. So, wala pang mga interpretasyon, right? And comments. It is information that is shown for the first time or original materials on which other research is based. Primary sources display original thinking, report, or on new discoveries or share fresh information. Ito lang ang palagi nyong tandaan. So, may tatlong source, diba tayo? Pag sinabi nating primary source, ang palagi nyong tatandaan is siya yung pinakauna. And it is first described or actually happened. So, ito yung pinakaunang-unang nangyayari. Right? Ano naman kaya yung pangalawa? Dito muna tayo sa examples of primary sources. So, yung examples ng pinakaunang source, we have the thesis, scholarly journal articles, some government reports, symposia and conference proceedings, original artwork, poems, photographs, speeches, letters, memos, personal narratives, diaries, interviews, autobiographies, and correspondence. Kung mapapansin ninyo sa mga example na to, ito yung mga unang-una pang information na nakukuha sa isang tao. So, hindi pa siya ina-analyze, hindi pa siya nare-revise, hindi pa siya nakikwento, hindi pa siya nababago. So, those are your primary sources. Second, we have the secondary source. Babalikan na naman natin yung game. Sa tingin niyo, sino yung secondary source? Of course, it is the second member. Ano yung ginawa pala ni second member? Siya yung sumulat ng actions o yung ginagawa ni first member. So, basahin natin kung ano ang secondary source. Yan. These sources offer an analysis. So, meron na tayong analysis. Kung yung primary source natin ay first-hand experience, no? Hindi pa siya na-analyze, wala pa siyang commentary, right? Hindi pa siya na-edit. Itong secondary source natin, analysis na siya. So, ibig sabihin, galing sa primary source, inanalyze, it was already analyzed, no? Those are secondary source. Okay. These sources offer an analysis or restatement of primary sources. They often try to describe or explain primary sources. They tend to be works which summarize, interpret, reorganize, or otherwise provide an added value to a primary source. Okay. Pag sinabi nating primary, ito yung pinakauna, first-hand experiences, pinakaunang nangyayari. Pag sinabi nating secondary, galing sa primary source, nagawan siya ng analysis. So, these are An example of secondary source. So, may mga example tayo ng secondary sources. We have the textbooks, edited works, books and articles that interpret or review research works, histories, biographies, literary criticisms and interpretation, reviews of law and legislation, political analysis, and commentaries. Kung mapapansin ninyo dito sa mga words na ito, edited, interpret or review research works, criticism, interpretation, reviews, legislation, political analysis, and commentaries. Ibig sabihin, may mga pinagbasehan ang lahat ng nandito na sources. Ibig sabihin, pag may binasehan ka, yung binase mo doon, sila yung tinatawag na first-hand knowledge, first-hand experiences, first-hand sa lahat ng bagay. So, sila yung pinakauna-unang information na inedit, ni-review, criticize, in-interpret, and has commentaries. So, pag sinabi nating primary, siya yung pinakauna, first-hand experience. Secondary, it is the analysis of the first or the primary source. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Okay, let's proceed to the third source. We have the tertiary. Madali lang namang tandaan. Pag sinabi nating primary, that is the first. Secondary, yung pinaka-second, and tertiary, yung pinaka-last or yung third one. So, kung babalikan na naman natin ang game na example natin kanina, so saan doon? Of course, no, automatically, tertiary source or sources, yun yung third member of the group. Ibig sabihin, siya yung nag-summarize ng lahat ng nangyari. So, siya yung nagsabi if ano yung ginawa ng first member na nakita sa notes ni second member. So, basahin natin kung ano yung tertiary source. These are sources that index, abstract, organize, compile, or digest other sources. Some reference materials and textbooks are considered tertiary sources when their chief purpose is to list, summarize, or simply repackage ideas or other information. Tertiary sources are usually not credited to a particular author. So, katulad ng third member natin na sinummarize na ang action ng first member and yung sinulat na second member, ang pinaka-role talaga ng tertiary source ay mag-organize and mag-compile or digest other sources. So, para mas maintindihan nating mabuti, ano-ano yung mga example: dictionaries, encyclopedias, almanacs, factbooks, Wikipedia, bibliographies, directories, guidebooks. So, lahat ng yan, no? Kung mapapansin niyo ay puro listahan because it summarizes other sources. So, manuals, handbooks, and textbooks. Okay. Indexing and abstracting sources. Okay. So, again, to recap, may tatlo tayong source of information. We have the primary source, secondary source, and tertiary source. Next. Dito na naman tayo sa ibang concepts under media and information sources. We have the indigenous knowledge, library, museum, archives, and internet. Okay. Indigenous knowledge. So, sabi dito, indigenous knowledge refers to the understandings, skills, and philosophies developed by societies with long histories of interaction with their natural surroundings. For rural indigenous people, local knowledge informs decision-making about fundamental aspects of day-to-day life. Okay. This knowledge is integral to a cultural complex that also encompasses language, systems of classification, resource use practices, social interactions, ritual, and spirituality. These unique ways of knowing are important facets of the world's cultural diversity and provide a foundation for locally appropriate sustainable development. Okay, so para mas maintindihan natin kung ano ba talaga ang indigenous knowledge, because alam ko mahirap intindihin, right? Okay, hihimay-himayin natin. Sabi, indigenous knowledge is also called indigenous media. That is unique na ibinibigay sa isang kultura sa society. So, it is relayed through people media and community media. Pag sinabi nating people media, sila yung gumagamit ng media. Pag sinabi nating community media, it is controlled and managed by indigenous people. So, meron tayong 3 characteristics of indigenous media or indigenous knowledge. First, practice of oral tradition of communication. So, ibig sabihin, dito pa lang sa oral tradition malalaman na these indigenous people, usually, hindi sila gumagamit ng mainstream media. So, again, pag sinabi natin mainstream media, ito yung technology natin ngayon. Meron tayong television, meron tayong radio, meron tayong cellphone, right? So, sila, ang ginagamit nila is yung pagsasalita. So, information, naihahatid nilang information orally or verbally. So, sinasalita lang nila, nire-relay nilang information by speaking it. Okay? Next characteristic. Information is stored in memories of people. Ibig sabihin, sa ganitong character ng indigenous media or indigenous knowledge, walang records na isusulat or nangyayari. There are less documents here. Bakit? Kasi nasa memory lang ng tao. Next, information is contained within the border of the community. So, which means the traces of information is limited only doon sa kanilang community. So, ibig sabihin, hindi lumalabas ang specific information sa kanilang lugar. So, doon lang nagsisirculate ang information sa kanilang lugar. Okay. We also have this library. It is a curated collection of sources of information and similar resources selected by experts and made accessible to a defined community for reference or borrowing. It provides physical or digital access to material, may be a physical location or virtual space or both. So, meaning to say, it is a building, building or room containing a large amount of books. So, okay. There are types of library that we have here, May 4 tayo. First is the academic, second is public library, third is school library, and fourth is special library. Unahin natin yung first, the academic library. Yung academic library natin, sineserve niya yung different colleges and universities. So, ito yung mga library na nakikita natin sa colleges, right? Meron tayo sa Mindanao State University. So, okay. We also have the public library. Ito naman yung nagsiserve or it serves cities and towns. Third, school library. So, magkaiba si academic library and si school library. Bakit? Kasi yung academic library natin, kung ang sinuserve niya ay yung universities and colleges, si school library naman, ang sinuserve niya ay kindergarten up to grade 12. Okay? Special library. Ito libraries. These are the libraries that nakalocate siya sa iba't ibang places na nandito na present sa ating community. For example, may library tayo sa museum, may library tayo sa hospital. So, these are all called special libraries. Yan. A library's collection can include books, periodicals, newspapers, manuscripts, films, maps, prints, documents, etc. Okay. We also have this one, museum, a building where a large number of interesting and valuable objects such as works of art or historical items are kept, studied, and displayed to the public. Last one, we have the archives, an accumulation of historical records or the physical place they are located. Archives contain primary source documents that have accumulated over the course of an individual or organization's lifetime and are kept to show the function of that person or organization. Okay, so that ends our discussion. I hope you have learned something about this lesson, especially the 3 media and information sources. Again, to recap, what are the media and information sources that we have? We have the primary source, secondary source, and tertiary source. So again, I hope you have learned something about this lesson. Thank you for listening and see you in our next vlog. Bye!